Hey guys, here to do a review for Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 1, The Red Woman. I literally just got done watching the episode. Sorry if, my hair is not all nice and everything. But I could not just go ahead and do a review for it because it's all so fresh. And I even had to write notes down because I knew I would forget things that I wanted to really talk about. So, um, I'm just going to start at the beginning and go down. Obviously, if you haven't watched the episode, don't watch this because I'm going to be spoiling it. And so I'm going to say that right off the bat. If you haven't watched this episode yet, because something I will say right off the top before we get into the nitty gritty is that this was a fantastic episode. And probably, I think, one of, you know, not that any of the seasons of Game of Thrones has a bad first episode, but this is by far, I think, one of the better episodes. Especially knowing where we end off, they did such a good job of juggling what was important to start us off at the beginning of a new season. Because whenever you go into the next season for a series, there's usually multiple storylines going on, and so you wonder, okay, are they going to talk about this or are they going to talk about that? Because obviously they can't get to everything in the first episode. So what are they going to talk about? And I thought one of the things they did beautifully is not only is the episode just fantastic in itself, but they chose the things that needed to be talked about to talk about. And I got to give them credit for that. Because they could have brought in a little bit of everything if they really wanted to, but I think they realized that that would have been pointless. That they're gonna get to everything that we want to see, and I'm glad that they chose the things to talk about that they did. So, with all that said, now we're gonna get to the spoiler territory. So first things first. Starts off. My first note is Jon Snow is dead. And that's literally how it starts off. There's this beautiful, far away shot, and it pans to his body, and you see him laying there. And then something, I wasn't quite sure going into this exactly how they were going to bring this all home, but, after listening to some of my favorite YouTubers, talk about Game of Thrones, and also talking to some friends of mine and reading a bunch of it online. Some people got it right, and it was actually, Davos actually comes and finds Jon, and I actually really like that because that makes the most sense. And I thought something that was kind of heartbreaking in this whole first scene is, Ghost just, howling and trying to get at Jon because those direwolves are so close to their owners, and so there was this great undertone under everything that was going on, and I really love the way they started this thing out, and then I always forget his friend's name. I always forget all of their names. Pip is the only one I can remember, and I know Pip's dead because he's one of the dead ones, but Jon's friend was there, and he sticks up for him. He can't believe that he's dead, and Davos and a bunch of the good Night's Watchmen are there in the room together, and they're talking, and then Melisandre comes in, and there's this really great moment where I think she sees what's going on and just how far she's kind of fallen, and they really touch on it. You kind of already got a sense of that at the end of season 5. I believe that's the whole reason she comes back to Castle Black, or to the Wall, period, is because I there could be several reasons, but that's, I think, the overall reason. It could be because she thinks she can do something with Jon now, maybe, I don't know, and then when she gets there and then he gets killed, we'll just have to see exactly where her mind is at and why she came back, or even if they even tackle that topic, because out of everything that's going on, why she comes back is really not all that important. It's just, as someone who watches the show, it'd be cool if they summed that up. But we don't need to know why she's back. She failed. She came back to Castle Black. That's all we need to know. But Davos poses a really good point, and it causes Jon Snow's friend to go off. And this is something that I hadn't even thought about. Is there's a lot of people that have Jon to thank for where they're at. The wildlings, and they're worried about something happening with Alistair coming after them. But man, if they can get those wildlings on their side, he tells them what happened to Jon. This could be pretty epic, because those wildlings, just in pure numbers, would destroy the Night's Watchmen. So that was really cool. I love the way they started off. And then we kind of get into the next note I have is Theon a hero? And kind of what I meant by that is, it shows Theon and him helping Sansa escape. Both of them escaping together, and they're running through the forest. And they have to cross this really cold water, and Sansa doesn't really want to go. She's like, I can't, I won't make it. It's too cold. And he's like, believe me, I know what these dogs do. You don't want to go like that. And so, he kind of convinces her to go, and they go, and they hide. But then these men kind of come up on them. And there's this really sweet moment where he kind of is, holds her, and they're kind of sitting there together, and it was kind of a nice moment. It was kind of one of those things where I felt like, maybe Theon really is coming back a little bit slowly. So that was kind of neat for me, but then these men start to come, and Theon kind of becomes a hero, and he's like, hey, go, I'll hold them off. And and the whole thing that's going through my mind is like, come on, really, Theon, you're gonna make me like you at the end, because for all he's gonna bite the dust. But then Brienne saves the day, and that's literally what I have. That's my next note. Brienne saves the day, and I literally had to clap my hands when she comes running in with Podrick, and that whole fight scene is great. And finally Sansa does the smart thing and allows Brienne to be their protector, because Brienne is badass, and I can't wait to see what that whole thing turns out to be. The next thing I have down is Alistair and the Night's Watch. So there's a scene where Alistair basically comes clean with everybody. He's like, yeah, I killed Jon Snow. All right, and this is where we're at, And I thought there was this beautiful, again with undertones, because all throughout the series so far, there has been undertones of things that happen in real life. And I'm not going to really go into the politics of that or the realism of all of that. But I will touch it on this a little bit, because something that I love that he says is like, look, Jon Snow is taking this place into a place that's never been before. And it's really eye-opening to see that come out of Alistair, and you finally really understand where he's coming from, because at least in my opinion, they really, up until this point, really just painted Alistair as a douchebag. He's really just a dick. They haven't really gave him any meat, other than we pretty much just know, okay, he doesn't like Jon Snow. And up until when Jon becomes Lord Commander, he's been the one in charge. So he's in charge, and he doesn't like Jon. It's pretty much all we know. But now we get to see it. Okay, you know what? The reason he doesn't like Jon is because he's changing things. Things have been done for a long time the same way, and he's got to see a lot of things happen, and he doesn't like what Jon's doing. So I loved, even though I can't stand that character, and I can't. Somebody just sent me an email. Awesome. But something that I love is the fact that we finally get to see that and that character, and that's something that I wasn't really expecting. I kind of was, but I wasn't. It's kind of hard to explain. The next thing I have down is Cersei's reaction to Myrcella being dead. And, from the very beginning of this series until the end of episode 4, I hated Cersei. You know, I didn't like her. You know, and you know, I said in my last review, I think when I did my review for season 5, that you know this is I've gone through the show 1 through 5 3 times, so I've seen the show 3 times, and I got something different out of Cersei's character this last time going through it. But the overall thing is, I don't really like her. She's just mean and coarse, and um, but something that I love about her, if not probably the only thing that I love about her, is that she loves her family, and she knows what she's doing. You know, she might make some mistakes. She might um, make some wrong choices, but she does it all for very pure, honorable reasons, though, and that's something that I do respect about that character. Is she doesn't do it out of cruelty all the time. I mean, I do think that there are certain things in the show that she does out of cruelty, but 9 times out of 10, I really do think that everything she does, she has a reason for it, you know, and it's to protect her family and protect what she feels is good and honorable about the Lannisters and her family name and all that kind of stuff. And she loves her children. And it was really heartbreaking because you get to see her be so excited that Myrcella is back. You know, when her maid or whatever you want to call her comes and tells her that, you know, there's a ship from Dorne here, you know, and you just see the light in her eyes. You know, she's like, Myrcella, you know, she's back. And then you see her standing there, and as the boat gets closer, you see you know, Jaime standing there, and there's a body down, and she knows. She knows. And it's this just heart-wrenching, heart-breaking moment. And, you know, it's crazy, you know, and, you know, and then Jaime and her have this really close moment together, and you know there's a lot said in between of them. And you know, one thing I kept thinking is because of that encounter she had with a witch when she was younger, she really does think that all 3 of her children are going to be taken from her. And I gotta say, like, I don't know where the show is going to go, and I'm not even going to try to guess what they're going to do. You know, I had hints of what was, you know, I got into Game of Thrones late in the game, and so I kind of knew where the show was at when I started it for the first time. So, you know, the second half of, you know, season 5 and season 6 has been completely new to me, and so this has been really cool. And so I like the not knowing aspect of it. It kills me because I want to know, but you know, I like that about it as well, as much as I hate it. And so one thing I kept thinking is, I really like Tommen as a character. I think he's one of the purest things about this show. And you know, they killed off Jon, and he may or may not come back. You know, obviously we know that Kit Harington was on set. I mean, they tried to hide it, but they did a piss poor job of that. So we know he filmed things, but it could be flashbacks for all we know. And even though Game of Thrones hasn't done that many flashbacks in the show, I think maybe 1 or 2, you know, so I don't know. I don't know if he's going to come back or not. And so let's assume that Jon does a comeback, and we're all wrong. Tommen is one of the few things about the show that there's still something pure, and he's noble. Even though he comes from maybe a not as noble background, he's a good kid, and he wants to be a good king. And I don't want to see him fall because of who his family is. And I know for me that I'm probably gonna cry if something ever happens to him. So I don't want anything to happen to Tommen. So that's that. I don't have a note for it because I don't want to say that I don't care about this. It's just that I don't know how big of a role this plot line is going to play in the grand scheme of the whole story of Game of Thrones. And that is the scene where what's her face, the Dornish chick, I always forget her name, but she she kills what's his face and kills his son, and her, her daughters kills her son, and they kind of take over Dorne. And so um yeah, okay, cool. That actor that plays what's his face is a really good actor. I absolutely adore him. Loved him in Star Trek. But okay, whatever. All right, he's dead. I cared more about the prince than I did him, and man, did the prince go pretty brutally. Spear through the head. Wow. So I don't know how big that plot line is gonna go. If they're gonna say that by the end of, because I don't think anything major is gonna happen with that plot line in this season. I could be wrong, but I don't think it is. So if they're trying to say that there's going to be like a big feud or a war with the Dornish people and King's Landing and the Lannisters or something like that, something that would be more epic than just the two of them fighting is causing a fight between the two of them when all of this other chaos is going on. And so I don't really think anything major. I definitely think we'll get updates with it throughout this season. This isn't the last time we're gonna see Dorne this season. I don't believe that at all, and I don't believe that we're not gonna see Cersei and Jaime try to put things in motion to do something against them. But I don't think we're gonna see the head of it, or the whatever you want to call it. I don't think we're gonna see the product of all of that until the next season, until season 7, or even season 8, depending on how they do the show. I hate this idea of, well, I'll make another video about, but I hate this idea of just having 13 more episodes and that being that. Come on, guys. Really? Not a good idea. So that's what I think about that. The next thing I have here is Dany and the Dothraki. Okay, so Dany kind of covers two different things. And at the end of 5, we get to see her taken away. And I thought there was this really cool thing where, I love this, the banter between the Dothraki when she's standing there and talking to the cow on all of that. And then, well, she kind of finds out that she's supposed to go to this place to basically just wither and die. That's not gonna be good. Dany's not gonna do that. I don't think Dany is gonna do that at all. No. Mm-mm. And also, the other thing that I wanted to say is, as far as Dany, is Meereen. And we see Tyrion and Varys a little bit, and then we see that somebody has burnt all of her ships. Probably the Sons of the Harpy. Don't know for sure, but it's probably the Sons of the Harpy. So she does not have any ships to get back to Westeros. So I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this, Dany might not even make it to King's Landing. It might not even make it to the Iron Throne. I can honestly say that if someone's going to take the throne from Tommen, if Tommen's not going to be king anymore by the end of all this, as a fan of the show who has been watching it, the only two people that I want to see take the throne is Jon Snow or Daenerys Targaryen. That's it. I don't want anybody else on that seat. I don't think anybody else deserves it. Jon would deserve it. And I like Dany, and I think she actually would be a good queen. And she is, technically, I am one of the people that slightly believes that she should, because of her father being killed. I mean, if it hadn't been for Jaime killing the Mad King, her bloodline would still be on the throne. And so, in a lot of ways, that was stolen from her. And so, it would be kind of interesting to see the whole show end with her being back on the throne. That would be kind of interesting. But that doesn't factor in the White Walkers and what's going to happen with them. That doesn't factor in the Wildlings. There's so many different things that weren't touched on yet in this episode. And the last thing to talk about is the Red Woman. And look, I talked about, I watched several different YouTube, some of the YouTubers that I watch, and I kind of read some things. And something that people always hinted at was Melisandre not being in her true form, whatever that meant. And there was bunches of different theories. Some said that, what if she was a man and she wasn't really a woman? Some said, what if she was old? What if, all these different things. And it turns out that she actually is an old old woman. You know, she's supposed to be like centuries old. And I gotta say, I didn't see it coming. Like, in the sense that I kind of thought that she was a man. That was the theory that I kind of decided to follow. Just because it would just be just shocking, you know, just whoa, you know. But no, she's just really freaking old. And that was such a brilliant way to end the show because, you know, I also watched, you know, I actually watched the show on HBO Now. And so, you know, they do that little thing where they talk about the episode at the end. And I love something that the creators talked about and how that, you know, this is one of those moments where she's got to look into her own eyes, her real eyes, because of everything that's happened. And that's exactly how I saw it. I didn't even need them to say that, but I'm so glad that they did say that because it just echoes what I felt in that scene was, you know, I have to be careful with what I want to say here because I don't want to be confusing or sound hypocritical, but here's the thing. I never hated Melisandre up until she chooses to sacrifice Shireen. You know, she sacrifices all of these other people, and it's just as bad. I know, but just this is just the way my head works. But that I felt took things to a new level. And look, you know, they were so smart about how they did her storyline throughout the show because look, when you look back from the very beginning that we see her until where we see her now, something that they always did throughout the show is they never fully told you whether she knew what she was doing or whether she didn't. Now, something they did paint was that she believed in what she was doing. I do believe that. They definitely painted that for us as the viewers. We were supposed to believe that she knew exactly what she was doing. But that's pretty much it. They didn't paint it any other way. You know, there was just like we had no idea whether or not she knew what she was doing or not. She thinks she did, but they didn't paint it whether it was like whether she actually did know what she was doing or not. And you know, something I always said, from the minute that she has Stannis look into the fire, from the moment that she starts talking about the vision she sees all the time and that there's this great big snow battle. Here's the interesting thing about that. When she's talking about those visions and everything she sees, everything happened the way she says it was going to happen except for that very last one. Because look, something she never says is that Stannis is going to arise at the end. That's not what she says she sees. She says that there's going to be a great snow battle. That's pretty much the gist of what she says every time she talks about it. You know, that's what she sees. Now there are other scenes where she says she believes that he's going to be victorious. And she might say that she thinks he's going to be victorious because of this battle that's going to happen, that he's going to take everything over. But if you really think about it and you dissect it, go back and watch all the scenes where she talks about what she sees in the fire. She never says that Stannis will be champion after this snow battle. And so something that I loved is in season 5 when they end it and he loses the battle. Even Brienne kills him. He's not victorious. She doesn't see who wins. She just said there would be a great battle. And it was this moment that sets her on the path that she's on right now. And so I love the way they ended this episode. And I hate it. Because once again, I have to wait until next week for the next episode, just like everyone else. And I don't like this feeling of being on edge for a whole week. No, I actually do like it. You know, once it gets, you know, to Wednesday or Thursday, I will be excited to have, you know, the next episode. But it's always after Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, or at least Monday and Tuesday, I am just biting my nails. I was like, oh, I wish it was Sunday again. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I freaking loved this episode. And I can't wait for next week. So that's all I have to say. Please subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe. Tell everyone about it. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'll definitely see you here next week for the next Game of Thrones episode. And see you guys in the next video. Peace out.